What does it mean to fund your business with personal contributions from founders? Or how do founders contribute personal capital to the business to fund the business? Well, one of the first methods is simply introducing cash on hand. That is, when you form the business, you have some personal savings, money in your bank account, money in savings accounts, inheritances, trust money that you can access somehow that is available to you, and you simply invest that into the business, right? You receive an ownership interest in the business in return for the money that you've invested. That many founders aren't able to invest a ton of capital, so instead they receive an ownership interest in exchange for their work product or their effort, which that generally is a form of funding the business through operations or operational revenue, because in essence what you're doing is foregoing revenue by working somewhere else in order to build the business and working there. So in that way you're investing in the business. But we're focusing on the actual transfer of currency to the business. Cash on hand is the first way and the most obvious way. The next way is retirement savings. Many individuals in their jobs or in their own other businesses in their lives, they contribute to retirement savings accounts, largely because there's tax benefits associated with it, like 401k plans or certain types of IRA plans have tax deferment or other beneficial provisions that encourage or incentivize you to save for the future for retirement. And the idea is that you cannot access these funds until some point in time in the future without paying taxes on what you pull out or paying a penalty on what you pull out. But lots of these types of savings accounts allow you to borrow against them, to post them as collateral, or to simply borrow funds directly from them. And that's a very common way to acquire funds for your business, to borrow against your existing retirement accounts. Now, not all retirement accounts allow for that, but if they do, it can be a good option, particularly during times when the market is not returning much money on your investment and you believe that putting the money into your business would be a better investment of the money. Okay, next is selling personal assets. That's liquidating physical assets or sometimes intellectual property, if you will, or even stocks, bonds, ownership interest, and other things, to have liquid capital that you can put into the business. So you turn any assets you have into cash to invest in the business. Some people sell physical property, others, like I say, intellectual property or commercial interest, contractual rights, and other things. So next, and a very common one, and one that's cited a lot that's somewhat risky, is to mortgage your home or to take out a line of credit against your home so that you can borrow money against your home and put that into the business. Now, this is personal funds because you have an ownership interest in the asset. And instead of selling the asset to create liquid capital, you are borrowing against it. But in essence, what you're doing is pulling out equity of what you already own. So that is already the value that you've accrued and putting it into the business. And that's how it's a little different than business loans, which do not represent value that you have accrued yet. It's a prospective value going forward based upon a plan of operations that you have in the future. So taking out a loan against your home to generate some liquid capital is the way to do it. And then lastly, credit cards. Generally, a business, when it first starts, is not going to be able to get a credit card, and certainly not one at a good rate. So when you take out loans yourself, personal loans that you can then use to fund the business, then again, this is a way to generate personal capital that you invest in the business. And the business isn't responsible for those loans. You are personally. So you're acquiring personal debt to transfer those assets to something that you own after that, a business venture. Now, the most common way to take out a personal loan is through credit cards. Credit cards are simply a loan mechanism whereby you're saying, I will pay back an amount later that I'm borrowing now. It's just made extremely easy to do so. A more formal method of taking out a loan would be simply to apply for a personal loan. And there are many services, usually your credit card company or bank, that offer these types of personal loans that are very similar to credit cards in nature, but they're personal, unsecured, as they say. There is no asset backing it up. You don't have to use the money to buy a particular thing like a car or a home or something like that. You're taking out a personal loan just on the promise that you will pay it back in the future, and you're incurring an interest rate to do so. And then you take those proceeds and invest it in the business. So these are the most common ways to fund a business initially, with personal assets or contributions of the founders. Of course, you may have property itself that is worth investing in the business, such as intellectual property or equipment or other things of that nature that can be used in the business's operation. And because this has value, this is very similar to cash on hand. You're putting those assets into the business. And then, of course, we already discussed contributing work or effort to the business. But once again, this is more akin to operational revenue, because if you're investing work in building the business, that is part of business operations. And instead of you generating revenue, now the business is going to in the future generate revenue. So again, that's a little bit different than personal funding. So, but these are the primary methods to consider when looking for ways to fund your business venture.